So I think we can all agree that our planet is getting fucked. Not, I mean, maybe literally, but more and less in like in figurative sense. Humanity is becoming a species that probably will not see the next 100 years or the next, God forbid, 200 years. I think that we're living in a time where it's just like it's so bizarre and so sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like so insane. It's almost like, reality has become a cartoon, or a cartoon has become reality. I don't know how to describe it. And again, I'm gonna just, before I deep dive into anything, I'm just gonna apologize for possible ramblings because my brain is sort of going all over the place, and I'm trying to keep it organized. And I'm probably gonna be rambling all the fucking time. So, you know, get used to it. Oh yeah, the world is fucked. The oceans are getting more acidic. There's less and less trees. The air is more polluted. Obviously, like the classic shtick that we all know. Like none of this is a revelation, or at the very least, it shouldn't be. You and me, you. Yeah, where's that? Yeah, there you go. You and me. We both know that these things are happening, and the question is, what can you do about it? Because the argument is always, well, I'm just an individual. You know, it's not my fault that we got a fucking orange orangutan in the fucking White House. It's not my fault we got incompetent politicians and fucking corporate vampires who are trying to suck us dry of pretty much everything. It's not my fault. And you're right, it's not. It's not my fault either. Um, but I do think that we as a society, we do need to take, we still need to take responsibility on some level. While, yeah, maybe you, God damn it, yeah, you haven't, voted for these people, maybe, but you still sort of, we all sort of, you and me, we both participate in this flawed, fucked up system. Now we can say we don't really have a choice. We're kind of forced into it, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're still complicit. Um, and again, I know this tale as old as time. It's like a rich guy. He sort of like creates this fake conflict between two poor people, and then he just like eats popcorn as they like kill each other. This has been happening from fucking ever since we first got consciousness. Probably even earlier than that. Probably the earliest. Like the fucking Australopithecus or whatever the fuck. They had their own power struggles and their own fucked societal games that they were playing. And how do you break out of that? How do you sort of, I guess, make something better? And for me personally, I can only speak for myself, obviously. I feel that the emergence of new sort of energies, green energy, wind, solar, water, all of these things, because there's this idea that we can't have this modernity, like running toilets, running hot water, without sort of fucking the environment. And I think that just that's sort of a, not necessarily like a cowardly idea, but like almost like lazy idea, because it's like, really, like we created cars, we created planes, we made trains. Are we really going to just say that, well, this is impossible, we just can't, we can't do it? We can. We can. It's not impossible. It's just about, people who have money don't want to give it up. They don't want to give the power up that comes with money. And we just have to essentially twist their arm and force them to give up that power, because they're not going to give it up willingly. That's just, I mean, at this point, this is a fact. You can't expect the people who are in charge, the corporate elites, the corporate vampires, and their sort of lapdogs, the politicians, to change. They're not going to do it. And, you know, that's I made my peace with that a long time ago. It's fine, you know. For me personally, as somebody who has, you know, I'm not a millionaire, I'm not a billionaire, clearly. I have worked pretty much, you know, well, not my entire life, but it's like I've worked in like different jobs. You know, I worked as like a waiter, I worked in a factory, in a printing factory, I worked as an accountant, as a fucking insurance salesman, which, right? Uh, I worked as like a graphic designer, animator, like all these things. Like I had sort of experiences from what it's like to work in a shitty low paying job and a nice cushy sort of office job. And I can tell you it's pretty much the same flavor of shit. You know, maybe when you're doing like a low paying job, it's more sort of physically demanding, I suppose, but like office work is just as fucked as you know, as physical labor, in my opinion, because it takes a toll on the mind, because it's just like, oh my god, I have to listen to the bullshit day in day out. I have to pretend I like my boss. I have to like, you know, agree with everything he's saying, even though it's like total and complete dog shit. And again, I know, this is preaching to the choir. This is, you know, this, you you know this, I know this. It's not really a revelation, or at the very least, it shouldn't be. And I don't know. I just turn on this camera and I'm just kind of wondering, how do we fix this situation? Like how? I think to me it seems clear that the people who are in power need to be voted out. And the way you do that is you have a population or populace. I'm speaking, of course, globally, not just America or Europe, or, you know, you need to have a population that is capable of critical thought, that is capable of detecting bullshit, and just being able to sort of have that, I don't know, I guess, sixth sense of when somebody's lying to you, you know, because I can be like you know, I can try, I guess, to be a to be charismatic, to be like, you know, very likable, all this shit, but like, what if you don't, there is no guarantee that I'm not lying or something like that, you know. And I think people need to be sort of capable of you know, discerning what is true and what is not. And that's usually, when you're in a group, that becomes very hard, you know. And I understand that children, teenagers, and especially the elderly, you know, I'm talking like 60 plus or 60 upwards, um, they they don't really have those skills, partially because of their age. You know, children and teenagers, they don't really know that much about life. You know, teenagers know a little bit more than kids, but still. And you know, they're very much impressionable, influenced by you know, opinions they hear on the internet, such as me. No. um and you know, elderly people sort of don't give a shit. I've noticed they don't give a fuck. They just given up on life, essentially, at least you know, the people that I've known. Not all of them, of course. You know, I don't want to generalize, but there is, I think, a growing number of elderly people who just don't give a fuck. You know, they don't give a fuck what's gonna happen when they die, what's gonna happen to the future generations. It's just like, yeah, this is, I'm all about it. I'm all in it for me, baby. That's how I, you know, that's how I roll. If you're an old person, I guess. um, and I understand that, you know, the powers that be sort of try to cater to these groups, to these age groups, as much as they possibly can. Maybe not politicians necessarily, in terms of like children and fucking teenagers. Even though, you know, oftentimes when you hear about these sort of restrictions or like government control and spies and spying on citizens and stuff like that, it's always cloaked in like, let's protect the children, let's protect the you know, the teenagers from their impressionable let's protect their impressionable little minds from the evil of this world. Um, they target these groups specifically because they know that they're the most easily controlled. And I think that, if you are a teenager, I know if you're a kid, you don't give a fuck. You'd probably, whatever, watching TikTok. Who gives a shit about YouTube? If you're a teenager, if you're elderly, you owe it to yourself to be sort of more critical, I guess. I don't know. I just, speaking for myself, I really wish that more people were sort of more critical of authority.